a mysterious dream, a repeating number, and a glowing encounter with Archangel Michael, all on this episode of Real Life Angel Encounters. Angels, we all have them. They're our unseen guides, our companions, our teachers, and they're all around us. Sometimes they make themselves known in the most miraculous ways. Join me, Level 3 QHHT practitioner, angel communicator, and Reiki master, Christy Clemens Hoffman, with stories from real people who have experienced uplifting phenomena and real-life angel encounters. Welcome back to Real Life Angel Encounters, the award-winning podcast featuring people just like you who have experienced extraordinary events. I am your host, angel communicator, Reiki master, hypnotherapist, quantum healing hypnosis technique practitioner, and now author, Christy Clemens Hoffman. Before we get too much further, I wanted to ask you a few small favors to help grow this show. First of all, buy the book. Yes, Real Life Angel Encounters is a book, very appropriately named Real Life Angel Encounters. Real people share real stories of miraculous encounters. You can find this book wherever you buy books online, and if you're lucky, maybe even your local metaphysical shop or bookstore. And if not, ask them to carry it by name. It is available from Simon & Schuster. Next, this really helps. Share the show. Tell your contacts, your friends, your coworkers, your neighbors, your family about Real Life Angel Encounters. They probably have stories of their own. Subscribe or follow wherever you're listening now. That's another huge thing that you can do to help grow the show. Now, I know it sounds like a really simple thing, and it is, but through the mystery and magic of algorithms, this boosts interest in the show and helps people find it when they are searching for angels and angel encounters. Now, lastly, the show is free for you to listen, but we do have costs that come out of my pocket. So donations are greatly appreciated. There's a link in the show notes for you to donate to this positive and uplifting show. And speaking of show notes, do you have a story to share? There is a link in the show notes that you can use to submit your story for consideration. There's even an email address. We are taking submissions. Now then, I would like to bring up to the podcast Brittanye, who is a fellow Kansas Citian who has a remarkable story about angel numbers. And now on the podcast, we have Brittanye, who has a story to share of angel numbers. Can you tell us what happened, Brittanye?
Yes. So back in January of 2020, slightly before COVID, I want to say it was January 1st, New Year's, I had a dream. And this dream was probably the strangest dream I've ever had. When I had this dream, I had a dream about being in like a college class. And at the time I was taking accounting courses for business management. So, it made sense that I had a little anxiety about that. But we were taking a college course, and part of the assignment was to go to a place called Gator Island in Alaska. And I am like a warm weather person. So when they said Alaska, no, Gators, no. So I'm like super reluctant. I'm like, I don't want to go to this place. But it was so evident, like in the dream, that I had to go to complete the class. I was so reluctant, like I could feel it in my physical body, how reluctant I was to do it. But I was like, you know what? Okay, we're going to go to this place. And so we get on a boat and we're journeying to Gator Island in Alaska. It's freezing. The water's freezing. We're on a boat. And they told me it was going to take 6 hours and 10 minutes to get to this destination. And this is just like a number that really stuck with me. So we get to this destination, and I don't remember much after that, like what the destination was like. I just knew when I woke up, I knew, like I just did not, I was so reluctant to like even do it. So I was like, that's a weird dream. It was super vivid. So I wrote it down. I jotted it in my iPhone notes because I was like, there's going to be some significance. As time goes on, I want to say about maybe a month and a half later, in February of 2020, we get a call from my husband's sister, and she needs us to pick up her children just because she's wanting to make sure that they get back and forth to school, and there were other issues going on. So we go and we pick up his nephew, who at the time was 12 months. And we were only supposed to care for him for a few months. And as time went on, there was another situation that ended up bringing his older sibling into foster care. And just a little background on me, I used to do social work for a very long time in child welfare. And I went into advocacy later on for foster and adoptive families. But
oh, wow. I was a former foster mom, and I know how tough it is.
It is. And it's a lot different, like being a working professional and then having this happen in your life. Yeah. So from at the time, I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. I went from having 2 toddlers to now initially I had 3 and, a baby. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so overwhelming. But then when the older sibling came into care, I looked up and I woke up the 3rd of July and I had 4 kids in my house. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I live in a 700 square foot house. Like, this was not built for that. And so as the journey continues, the older sibling ended up going to live with another relative, but we go through the whole foster care process, which you would think for a social worker or somebody with know-how, it would be an easy journey. It was not. It was one of the most complicated journeys I've ever been on, the most testy. We had so many things go on over the course of this case for 2 years, and so many times and instances where I felt like I had reached my limit and I was like, I'm ready to give up. I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
And it just occurred to me, I was like, I have to keep pushing. I got to sleep it off and get back at it again. And so at the end, we were going into an adoption hearing, and we did the adoption hearing, which ended up turning into a trial unexpectedly.
Oh, no.
The hearing. And it was wild, but we ended up with an adoption. And we did this hearing on June 7th, and they granted us adoption that day. But I did the math, and he was in foster care for 610 days before we had that hearing. And when we finally received the adoption decree and all that jazz from the courts, they signed his adoption decree on June 10th. And so, yes. So I was like, oh, well, I guess that's the significance of the number 610. It was huge changes that were happening in my life that I kind of got a nice little heads up on.
Now, do you follow angel numbers at all? Do you look them up or anything like that?
I do from time to time, and I want to feel like I did look this up. And I was thinking initially, I was not thinking that I would be fostering a child. But I ended up thinking like it was a business thing because at the time I was working on a business. And so I was like, surely it's a business thing. But no, it was definitely this situation. And I want to say it had something to do with changes. I did look it up and I stuck it in my notes because I was like, I know that this number is going to be significant.
Well, I actually looked it up before you hopped on this call. And one of my favorite resources for angel numbers is Sacred Scribes angelnumbers.blogspot.com. So this woman named Joanne, I believe she's in Australia. And so she has a whole index of numbers. And I looked this up. Angel number 610 is a message from your angels reminding you that your thoughts and beliefs create your realities and experiences. And you are encouraged to hold only positive expectations and thoughts about your material circumstances and life in general. New and or unexpected opportunities will arise, sometimes in the most unexpected ways, that will ensure all that you need to maintain and sustain you in your daily life will come to you when required. Do not hold fear of lack or loss. Have faith and trust that your angels and the universe will make sure that your material needs are met as required. Ask for angelic guidance and assistance in regards to family and relationship aspects of your life. Then listen to the messages from your intuition and inner wisdom. The angels are currently letting you know which choices and changes to make that will ensure that you and your loved ones have all that is required to maintain and sustain your daily requirements. Angel number 610 asks you to maintain a positive attitude, whilst the angels work with you to manifest your wants and needs. Take time to relax with friends and loved ones and appreciate the many blessings in your life. And it further goes on just a little bit. Angel number 610 is a message that the angels are helping you to stay centered and focused on expressing and living your personal truths and spirituality. Walk your divine path and soul purpose with faith, trust, and love, safe in the knowledge that all of your monetary and financial needs will be met along the way. Trust in your natural abilities and talents and believe that you have all the skills you need to manifest positive abundance in your life. Wow.
Yeah. And that's so funny. It extends so far, even beyond that, like into other areas of my life. Wow. That is powerful.
I thought it was interesting that it talks about unexpected changes and support with family. Wow. No,
very much. And I mean, even this journey in and of itself has been full of unexpected changes, like things that I would have never thought. And it's just like, boom, you wake up one day and here you are. I mean, even to be here, it wasn't on my bingo card to do such things. So I'm super excited about what the universe has.
Hey, this was something that was divinely orchestrated.
Right? Definitely. And I know that, you know, I follow astrology pretty closely, and even my astrology is saying like I was supposed to have an unconventional child, and unconventional it was. I know that he has great things aligned for him in his destiny. And I think as we go through this journey, even being like a kinship family, I'm learning that there are so many things that I know that because he's with me, that I'm able to do for him that I think would not have been able to be noticed or even picked up on in other situations. And it's really, a lot of it has been pure intuition.
Love that. How old is he now?
He is 7. He is such a big guy now. Oh. First grader, because I'm a mom of 2 boys and they both have autism, but very high functioning kiddos, to the point that I just had an intuitive hit, like something else is going on. And it was a lot of pushback with asking for them to be evaluated because they're like, oh, well, they talk and they're very smart. And I'm like, no, I just have a vibe, like something else is going on. And sure enough, both my biological son, which is his cousin, and him both ended up with autism. And now that we know that, we teach them different ways to be supported in the world because, you know, they're treated like neurotypical kids all the time. So just giving them that voice to advocate for themselves and their needs and really removing that negative stigma from autism, because it truly is a superpower. Like, these kids are great at some things that I'm like, man, you better grow up and be an engineer, or you better be building computer systems, I swear.
Well, it sounds like this nephew may have had a hand in organizing this change. He may not have had that resource for the testing and support had he stayed where he was.
Yeah. And I just think it's so interesting. And it was like, I didn't have that on my bingo card, but it's also weird how I've found that the universe will always prepare me for what is to come. And it's like they gave me a background in social work to have the know-how to actually navigate the system. Right. Because if I didn't have that, like, this case would have been completely different. And they also put me as a para in a special needs classroom for 3 years before my son was born. And so just being able to have that know-how was so important when it came to having my son and having him, because I can pick up on like, now you process things a little differently. But I think had I not had that hands-on experience, I totally would have missed it.
I love it. No, you're absolutely right. It sounds like everything kind of conspired to come together for you.
Absolutely.
Wow. What an amazing story, Brittanye. Thank you so much for sharing on Real Life Angel Encounters.
Not a problem. Thank you guys for having me. Oh my God. I'm so glad that I actually got to share.
I know, me too. And next up, we have Sabrina, also a fellow local girl who has remarkable stories of appearances in her living room, healing, and her remarkable kiddos. And now we have Sabrina, a fellow Kansas City area girl who reached out to me on Facebook and shared some amazing stories that I thought were perfect for this podcast. Hi, Sabrina. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing wonderful. Now, you have some stories like from your entire lineage, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start?
Well, probably My whole family, like the women on my mother's side of the family, have all had these, I want to say, like divine gifts from above. We're just like intuitives, have gifts. Like I'm a medium, so I'm clairsentient, clairvoyant, claircognizant. So it's been in our lineage going back, I don't even know how long. I have stories from my grandmother, from my great aunt, my mom. So it goes back a long ways. And my second born daughter is gifted as well. And in the beginning, I thought surely she just has an imaginary friend. But I started asking questions and like kind of listening into her little conversations. And what I gathered was she had the gift, the ability to see angels. So that's kind of where it starts. And I ended up getting diagnosed with lupus, gosh, in 2017. So I was really sick during this period of time. And Ava was only, I think she was 4 at the time when this happened. That's kind of where it starts.
Right. This does tend to run in families, right?
Yes.
So you had an interesting story of your daughter, Ava, and Archangel Michael.
Yes.
My favorite.
Yes.
I love that guy. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So after I figured out she could see angels, which I thought was super cool, I did a little research and I found this book by Lorna Byrne called Angels in My Hair. And she's a mystic. And I had just finished reading that. And I don't know if there's any correlation if I was more open to the experience because I had just read that and heard all of her experiences with angels. But my mother is really toxic and I'm bedridden at this time. And I ended up having to block my mom. So I was really emotional this day. My oldest daughter was at school. My husband at the time was at work. And it was just me and Ava just hanging out in the living room. Like we weren't really doing anything. She was on the ground and I was on the couch and I was just scrolling Facebook. And it was a beautiful day out. So I had the back door open and the screen door was just like closed. So the wind could come through. And I had the front door open and we didn't have a flute in our fireplace. And that's important to note. And you'll see why. So I was just sitting there and she was on YouTube watching some video. And all of a sudden we heard this big wind gust. And the dog, Coco, she started freaking out and like she jumped up and ran to the back door. And this wind, it was just like pouring into the house. And it was the weirdest thing. And I just got this like calming feeling over me. And I looked at Ava and Ava just smiled at me. And then I looked up and in front of the fireplace, Coco was sitting down next to it and just smelling at my dog, almost like she was obeying it and like curious about it, just looking at it. And it was this huge, it had to be like this big, like probably the size of like a big beach ball. And red and orange, brilliantly red and orange, almost alive, spiraling orb in my living room. And I just had a knowing that it was Archangel Michael. And he just basically told me that things were about to change and everything was okay. And like I made the right decision blocking my mother and gave me this huge sense of peace. And I looked at Ava and just kind of smiled. And she looked up at me and she said, "Isn't it cool, Mom?" And I just knew it was God showing me that this gift that my daughter had. So that's how it happened. And it was crazy. And I didn't think anyone would believe me at all. But I called and I told my dad about it. And he was just amazed. And I wonder if that has something to do with my lupus, because I was in bed just trying to will my way out of bed, if you will, and praying a lot and just begging for mercy. Because I don't know if you know anything about lupus, but it's incredibly painful. Yeah. So we ended up going to my mama's house in Tennessee, I think for Thanksgiving or something that year. And I told her about the experience. And the magical thing that happened after this is I started getting better, progressively started getting better. From that day till 6 months later, my body just started going into remission. The inflammation started melting away from my body. I was overweight from just all the inflammation in my body and it just started melting. And I told my mama about it. And I was like, I think it was Archangel Michael. And I think he came to tell me everything's going to be okay and heal me because I've been getting better. And she just cried. And she was one of those women that was very skeptic, if you will. She's on my dad's side, so it's not the lineage. And usually she would just look at me like I was crazy, but she had such a divine reaction from it, which was crazy to me. And then fast forward, I ended up doing like intuitively after that, I started knowing these modalities I needed to do to get better, like Reiki and acupuncture and sound healing and yoga. And like just all these things were popping into my head, like this will heal you, this will make you better. And I did. I started getting better using those modalities. And I ended up, because Reiki was such a huge part of my healing, I ended up going to a retreat to learn how to do Reiki. And that was at St. Francis of the Woods in Coyle, Oklahoma. And there's a big, beautiful chapel there. And that's where we had our opening ceremony. And this was about almost exactly a year later after Archangel Michael was in my living room. And the bishop, Aiden, was going around to all the icons. They had like archangels and different icons in the chapel. And he got to Archangel Michael, and Archangel Michael was standing here like this with his palm out, and there was a red and orange orb in his hand spiraling like I saw in my living room that morning. It was crazy.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, first of all, this kind of reminds me of Moses and the burning bush.
Yes.
I can imagine a burning bush might look like this orb swirling around in red and yellow. And wow, this is amazing, Sabrina. Oh my goodness. I have so many questions.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
That is really wild. Now, you just knew kind of instinctively this was Archangel Michael. And then
I just knew. I don't know how else to explain it. It wasn't like this thing was talking to me. It was kind of pulsing and spinning and moving. And I heard this voice in my head.
Oh,
yeah.
I totally believe you. Yes, that happens. It happens. And then it was confirmed when you saw this depiction of Archangel Michael with this. Like, that's nuts. Oh my gosh, I love this so much. Now, and you knew that it was a sign that your daughter Ava was actually experiencing this as well.
Yes.
Gosh. Has she expressed any of this since then?
So a few years after this all happened, it was 2020 during COVID, and my ex-husband was in the military. So we ended up, I packed the girls up and I drove to my mama's because she lived in like the middle of nowhere, Tennessee. So we thought we would be safe there. It was when everyone was freaking out right in the beginning, right? Like March, I want to say it was. And my mama ended up getting diagnosed with pancreatic cancer the day I got there. So it was like a divine appointment for me to be there so I could take care of her. So I did. I took care of her and I had the girls there with me. And my dad lived across the street from her at the time. So he was there too, but he was having a really hard time with it. So it was just me and the girls over there a lot of the time. And Ava and Ari were playing outside a lot because she lived on a big piece of property, like right on the Tennessee River. And Ava came running inside one day, and Mama was doing not good at all. All the family was there at this time. She wanted everyone to come in. So Ava came running in, so excited. And she had been seeing angels and telling me about these experiences since that moment and before that moment. And she came in and she said, Mom, I saw the death angel. And it was the most beautiful angel I've ever seen. And it was magnificent. It went all the way. My daughter talks like old woman. So she always has full sentences and like she's been here before almost. It's crazy. So she's like, it's magnificent. It went all the way through the ceiling, all the way down to the river. It's the biggest angel I've ever seen. And it was just the most beautiful one. And so she's like describing this angel to me and she's all excited about it. Well, my mama ended up passing away 2 days later. So she was extremely upset. And she told me she didn't want to see them anymore. So I don't know if she's had any experiences since that death angel came to her, or if she asked God to take it away from her. She hasn't told me about any experiences since then. So.
And how old was she when this started happening?
As soon as she could talk, I knew she could see things. So probably from the time she was born until Mama passed, and that was in 2020. So 6 years ago. So she was 5, about to turn 6.
Yeah. About that age, 6 or 7 years old is when a lot of kids, because we're all born being able to receive, right? The other side, the veil is so thin. But about the age of 6 or 7, that veil starts to lift and many children will stop experiencing that.
Yeah.
And we can turn it off, but I never recommend to do that because that energy has to go somewhere. And that energy will usually go toward depression or anxiety or insomnia, right?
Yes.
So, and Ava may choose to open that back up later when she feels a bit more comfortable and confident in it.
Yeah.
So how old is she now?
She's 11. She'll be 12 in September. And she's still very like woo-woo, wants to be like mommy. She lost her pendulum. She has a pendulum. And she's like, will you give me a new pendulum? And she will say, like, I talk to spirits. So she's still very much in the world. And with a mom like me, you know, I try to harbor that and keep her open to it.
Yeah, and that's what we do with these kids. There's nothing that the parents need to really do, but just to encourage them and just allow them to feel like it's normal because it is, right? And just believe them when they're telling us these things and help them express this interest. Yeah, too many parents just let the children know that, oh my gosh, that's scary. You can't be seeing that. That's not real.
Right.
And this is a way for children also to shut it off, but yeah, that's so interesting. Now, you said that Ava is your second daughter, and you feel like your first daughter has any of these abilities?
She doesn't share that she does. And even when she was younger, she's 16, about to be 17 now. And when she was younger, she would get upset that she didn't, and she would like try. Because I think she thought it was like something mommy and Ava had in common, and it like kind of upset her a little bit. But I definitely think she's intuitive for sure. She's got a knowing about her, but she's not as open to it maybe, or not as in tune as Ava is for sure.
Well, it sounds like she has different gifts.
Different gifts, yeah.
There's sentience or cognizance, right? Just different, which we all do. You know, how boring would it be? Well, how bad off would we be if doctors did not specialize? I mean, everybody specialties and their things, their gifts that they bring, right?
Yes.
And thank God, because it would be so boring if all artists were only painters and there were no singers or dancers, right? So no, I think these are beautiful stories. And I love that you help them express that and tell them how normal it is. And, you know, don't poo-poo it at all. That's beautiful. You're doing great. You're doing great with the kids. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, Sabrina. This is very helpful, I think, for a lot of parents and a lot of people in general, just to know that this stuff happens, it's real, and we step into it. We can embrace it even.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening. Please subscribe and follow, and be sure to share this episode. The more people who know about this podcast, the more great story submissions we get. Have a story to share? Email your own real-life angel encounter to angelencounterspodcast@gmail.com or visit radiatewellnesscommunity.com/real-life angel encounters podcast. Or join our Facebook group and continue the discussion. Want to know what your angels and loved ones have to tell you? Schedule an appointment with me at radiatewellnesscommunity.com. A special thanks to James Wheeler for the original music and to Tiffany Baumgarten for the logo design.